What is up, guys? Pro Football Maniacs here, and today we're going to be starting a new segment called Football in Seconds. So what we do in Football in Seconds is we review each NFL team, and we only have 20 seconds to do so. Let's get started. Alright, so we're starting with Arizona Cardinals. They beefed up the offensive line this year. They have great receivers, great secondary. However, they lost Carlos Dansby to the Cleveland Browns, and they lost Darrell Washington to a 1-year suspension. Those are going to be two huge losses, and I believe because of that, they're still in contention for a playoff spot, but it's going to be close, sort of an in-division Week 16 matchup. Alright, so the Atlanta Falcons had a great offseason. They had assigned Paul Soliai, Tyson Jackson, Jake Matthews, John Asamoah, and they've gotten much better on the fronts. There's still questions at pass rusher and safety, but ultimately, if they can pull it off throughout the end of the season, they might be able to get a wild card. Alright, so the Baltimore Ravens have a uber-talented roster. They've signed C.J. Mosley and Timmy Jernigan in the draft. Although Ray Rice has lost for 2 games, they've beefed up all over the place. They have a great defense. Signed Steve Smith as bolster the receiving corps to give Joe Flacco weapons. Ultimately, they can potentially win this division and have it be a strong playoff contender. Biggest sleeper team in the NFL is the Buffalo Bills. They've gotten much better this offseason. The defensive line is amazing as always. Secondary is great even without Jerry Spurd. Receiving corps bolstered even though they lost Stevie Johnson. They signed Sammy Watkins in the draft. E.J. Manuel's coming back. Offensive line is much better. This is the big sleeper team and potentially a playoff contender. Maybe. The Panthers just got bad this offseason. They haven't done much to replace those lost receivers. They signed Jericho Carter, Jason Avant, Tyquan Underwood, and they got Kevin Benjamin from the draft. However, I don't think they'll be able to perform to the point they did last year. They're not going to win the NFC South division. Their defensive line is always something to watch out for, but they're not going to be a big team this year. Contrary to the Panthers, the Bears excelled this offseason. They signed Jared Allen, Lamar Houston, M.D. Jennings, got Will Sutton in the draft, Kyle Fuller. They got much better this offseason. They addressed the defense. Offensive line is great. Great receivers. Jay Cutler's got to perform. He got a new contract. This is a great team. The Cincinnati Bengals look to me like a 9-win team this year. They want to go past the wild card round for the first time in 3 years, since Andy Dalton was after it, but I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs this year. All the teams in the AFC have gotten better. The AFC North specifically, it's going to be heavy competition, and I doubt they'll be able to recreate the past 3 years. Not looking good. Cleveland Browns, the sitcom show of the NFL. They drafted Johnny Manziel and Justin Gilbert in the first round of the draft. They don't have Josh Gordon because they lost him to 1 year of suspension at least. It's not looking good for the Cleveland Browns offensive-wise. Defensive-wise, they're pretty good with Joe Hayden at corner, so their defense is going to have to carry them along with the run game, kind of like the Carolina Panthers last year. Good news, the Cowboys aren't going to go 8-8. Bad news, they're going to be worse. They did not improve the defensive line, lost Jason Asher and DeMarcus Ware, did not replace them well. Their only main target on offense is Dez Bryant. Jason Witten's slowing down, so is Tony Romo. This is not looking like a good team, especially when it's crunch time in the late weeks. The Broncos got better in every aspect of the game this offseason. They signed DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, and T.J. Ward, the hard-hitting safety. They've gotten so much better along the defense, and their offense is already number 1. But even with the loss of Eric Decker, and they bring Emmanuel Sanders, this offense and defense is going to be number 1 Super Bowl contenders. Alright, so the Detroit Lions. They signed Golden Tate from the Super Bowl champion Seahawks. They've got Eric Ebron from the draft, Kyle Van Noy from the draft. I think they're loaded up. They have the best receiver, a great quarterback, sort of, a great defensive line. I think if they can get over the secondary, they're actually in contention for a wild card run this year. The Packers are always great. This year, they have Aaron Rodgers back healthy, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, all back healthy. Defensive line, Clay Matthews, A.J. Hawk, at safety position, Clinton Dix. They've gotten much better, and obviously they have Aaron Rodgers, probably the best quarterback in the game, so this is going to be a great year. To say that Houston Texans had a down year last year is an understatement. However, they've gotten better. They got Jadeveon Clowney, arguably the once-in-a-generation player, beefed up the offensive line. Defensive line scary as always with J.J. Watt. Big question, quarterback. Can they get over the quarterback? They have great receivers, but their quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't think he can get it done this year. Alright, so the Indianapolis Colts were good in free agency. They got Hakeem Nicks as their biggest free agent signing. They didn't have a first-round draft choice. However, and Robert Mathis is suspended for the first 4 games, and they're not looking good at center. But despite all of those setbacks, they do seem primed for a great Super Bowl run, if not this year. The Jacksonville Jaguars were great in the offseason. They've got Blake Bortles as their potential quarterback of the future. Got Marquise Lee, Allen Robinson at wide receiver. Signed Toby Gerhart at running back, and signed Chris Clemens and Red Bryant at defensive tackles. I think they're building for the future, and they're going to look good. Alright, so the Kansas City Chiefs. They didn't necessarily have the best offseason in the world. They lost Brandon Albert, Jeff Schwartz, and John Asamoah on the offensive tackle side. They re-signed Jamal Charles, but they also lost Tyson Jackson on defensive tackle. I don't think they'll be able to compete in a hard division as like the AFC West. Things aren't looking really good for the Miami Dolphins. The loss of center Mike Pouncey for a couple games already worsens a questionable offensive line. On the defensive side of the ball, Cameron Wake is aging. Brent Grimes is probably the only defensive star. Deion Jordan's out for 4 games. Things aren't looking so good right now for the Miami Dolphins. Alright, so the Minnesota Vikings had themselves a decent offseason, which saw them pick up Anthony Barr and Teddy Bridgewater from the draft. As of now, Matt Castle is the number one quarterback, and they've made some strides. They have the best running back in the league right now. Good defense, but I think they're not ready to compete in such a competitive NFC North division. The Patriots saw themselves this offseason getting Darrelle Revis in free agency, Brandon LaFell, wide receiver, in the draft. They got Dominique Easley, Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think the Patriots are always yearly AFC Championship Super Bowl contenders, and I don't see that changing now that Gronk is back and a better defense. They're going to be great this year. While we're on the topic of annual Super Bowl contenders, the New Orleans Saints definitely fit that bill. Drew Brees and Sean Payton, together they're a dynamic duo and have success every year. Of course, Jimmy Graham, Marcus Colston, and addition of Brandon Cooks definitely help, and they're definitely going to be in the playoffs this year, and as always, Super Bowl contenders. We're looking at another bad year for the New York Giants. They drafted Odell Beckham Jr. to give weapons to Eli Manning. However, they couldn't protect him last season, so they tried to do it this year. However, right guard Chris Nee retired, linebacker John Beeson's out for the year, and safety Will Hill got suspended and ultimately signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Things aren't looking good this season for the New York Giants. Based on the New York Jets offseason, we predicted they're going to go possibly 8-8. In a really tough division like the AFC East, you got to stay competitive. Geno Smith at quarterback, not the best. Eric Decker is their number one, once again not the best. Lost Aniota Cromartie, definitely not the best. They got a great defensive line, but I don't know if it's going to happen this year. The Raiders made great strides through this offseason. They signed James Jones at receiver. They have Rod Streeter at receiver. They signed quarterback Matt Schaub. They drafted Derek Carr. Got Khalil Mack on defense. Overall, I think the Raiders did really good this offseason. And, they're not going to be in playoff position, but they're going to be good. Alright, so the Eagles went out this offseason and got safety Malcolm Jenkins from the Saints. And they got running back Darren Sproles from the Saints. It's going to bolster the offense and defense greatly. They lost Deshaun Jackson, but they got Jeremy Macklin back from injury with the emergence of Zach Ertz and Brent Selleck. It's looking like a good year for Philadelphia Eagles once again in the Chip Kelly era. The Steelers went out this offseason in the draft. They got Ryan Shazier with the first-round pick, and they got Dre Archer later in the draft. So overall, what they did here was they bolstered the offense and defense, got faster on defense, faster as always on offense. Offensive line is back to much better form. I think they'll be great this year. The Chargers drafted Jason Verrett in the first round to bolster their secondary. They have great safety in Eric Weddle, but I don't think it's going to happen this year because they don't really have a pass rush, and the drafting of Manti Te'o from 2013 wasn't the best decision. So overall, I don't think it's going to happen this year. The San Francisco 49ers seem to be a contender in every single year. They drafted Carlos Hyde at running back. They have Michael Crabtree, Vernon Davis, Anquan Bolden, Colin Kaepernick, a great offensive line, great defensive line. Navarro Bowman is coming back mid-season, Patrick Willis. It's looking to be another great year. However, their secondary could hold them back. Replicating a Super Bowl winning season isn't an easy task. That's the task the Seattle Seahawks have this year. The reigning Super Bowl champions lost Golden Tate, their leading receiver this offseason, and defensive pieces Chris Clemens and Red Bryant to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had many miracles last season to help them win games. I don't know if it can happen again the same way this year. St. Louis Rams just got much better this offseason. The additions of Aaron Donald and Greg Robinson are definitely going to solidify completely both lines. They've been building for quarterback Sam Bradford ever since he was brought in, and right now's the time I think they can compete in a hard NFC West division. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers just got much better this offseason. They got Winston Jackson-Clone and Mike Evans. They got Michael Johnson and free agency. They already have stellar linebackers and a stellar defensive line. They added Josh McCown at quarterback, and they have Altron Werner at corner. This is a team on the rise, and they look to be much better next season. The Tennessee Titans have questions at quarterback. Jake Locker has trouble staying healthy. Because of that, they've been spending many drafts and free agencies bolstering that offensive line. Recently, in the first round of the 2014 draft, they picked up Taylor Lewan with their 11th pick in the draft. You know, they're building to protect their quarterback, but they also have many other questions which is going to stop them this year. The Redskins got better this offseason. You know, they didn't have a first-round pick, but they got DeSean Jackson. Now they form one of the best wide receiver duos with Pierre Garçon and DeSean Jackson. RG3 is back full and healthy. They got Jason Hatcher on the defensive line and free agency. I think they're going to have a really good year and a not-so-hard NFC East. Alright guys, that was our first long episode of Football in Seconds. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you enjoy football in general, subscribe. It's free. If you have any suggestions or there's any type of football video, anything at all about the NFL that you want us to make, leave it in the comments. If you want us to make another video like this, leave it in the comments too. Thanks for watching guys, and we'll see you guys later.